Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hey everyone, welcome to Ask Rob and Rob, the show where you give us your amazing, wonderful, delightful questions and we do our very best to give you some value in return by answering them. It's a format that's worked very well for a long time, so let's continue that. But before we do, let's remind you of how you can get your questions onto the show.
Yes, so easy. All you've got to do is go to propertyhub.net/ask. And once you're there, you can send us a written question for the Sunday Times, or our preferred option is let's hear your wonderful voice and leave us a question for this show here, which is exactly what Phillip did.
Hello, Rob. And hello, Rob. It's Phillip Hatch here. My question is about taking on sitting tenants, especially when exchanging with delayed completion, which we have to do. In my example, it's going to be about 6 months. I want to protect my interest and risk between the point of exchange and completion. I've negotiated a 10% discount off what I believe is market value in return for taking on the seller's sitting tenant, which I think is a good deal. But obviously between exchange and completion, I want the seller to carry on paying the service charge and not rack up a debt on the ground rent account. It's a leasehold property. And also, importantly, carry on dealing with any maintenance issues that may arise. I want to complete with the property in the same condition that it is upon exchange. And anything else I haven't thought of that is a risk with exchange of delayed completion with taking on sitting tenants. Obviously, I know that I'm legally bound to complete once that date arrives. So any thoughts or advice you've got would be most gratefully received. Thank you both.
Phillip, thank you for your question. 10% discount to market value sounds good to me. And yet with the delayed completion, you've got some risk that needs managing as there are tenants in place, but it is all manageable. So the most important thing here is to make sure that you are working with a solicitor who has dealt with this kind of thing before and knows what they're doing. If you've got a decent solicitor, that they should make sure that all the right clauses are in there that will protect you in this kind of arrangement. Assuming that that is done, then everything else will get taken care of at the point of completion. Because of course, there are things financially that will have changed by then. So the service charge and the ground rent are the obvious examples. They're the ones that you've highlighted. They will need to be kept up to date. If they haven't been kept up to date, then you should know about it because your solicitor should request statements of those at the point of completion as well as at the point of exchange. Then if there is a shortfall, then that can just be taken off the money that you owe the seller. Obviously, your bigger risk here is the tenants because again, hopefully your solicitor has got hold of rental statements and they can see that they are up to date and everything's been done properly, but things can go off the rails at any time. So you do have that risk that you've got a tenant who is playing ball perfectly nicely today, but then within the next 6 months, something happens. That one, there's not a great deal you can do anything about. But at the same time, this could happen with any one of your tenants as well. If you took on the property right now without delayed completion and you put a tenant in there, something could go wrong with them within the next 6 months. So I think really, as long as you are confident with things as they stand and all the right protections are in place, then that is just a risk that you need to be comfortable with taking on. And the fact that you've negotiated a discount, well, that does give you a little bit of a buffer. So if the quality of the property has degraded slightly, if there is anything that needs to be resolved, then you can do that. But all the big financial pieces, like the service charge being kept up to date, that should all be dealt with at the point of completion. But like I said at the beginning, the key part here is your solicitor. So hopefully they are on the ball. But if there's anything you're unsure of, if there's anything you think that they should have done that they haven't done, then do prod them, do ask, and do get yourself comfortable. Because even if you make yourself a little bit of a nuisance, then that's worth it just to give you peace of mind that everything's been taken care of. So Phillip, hope that helps and good luck.
Good luck, Phillip. Okay, next up, we've got a question in from Darren.
Hi, Rob and Rob. My name's Darren. Been listening to your podcast now for a good 5 years. Keep up the good work. I've got my first property underway now and I've successfully renting it out for about 3 years now. We actually purchased that jointly with my wife and it's currently going through us personally as opposed to going through a limited company. My question is it possible to, with the potential second property, buy that through a limited company and therefore having one purchased through a limited company and then having another property through our own personal names and doing the self-assessment tax returns on that basis? I'd just like to know your thoughts in terms of if there's any benefit of having both options there and doing both of them. It'd be great if you could come back to me. Thanks a lot.
Darren, thank you for going easy on me. This is a simple one for me to answer. Yes, you can pretty much do whatever you want. You can continue to buy in your own name and you can continue to from this point on to buy through a limited company. There's nothing wrong with having it in both. In fact, a lot of people do have it in both. I do, because I had property that I purchased before the tax treatment changed on properties a good few years back now, and I've got properties I've purchased since. So they are now in a limited company. And I know it's the same for Mr. D, and it's the same for a lot of people. A lot of people accidentally start in property, so they buy a property, live in it, and then end up renting it out, so that ends up in their own name, and then they, from that point on, are a bit more deliberate and go and buy through a limited company. Now, in the majority of circumstances, not all, but the majority, it's best to buy through a limited company. But some basic tax advice, speaking to an accountant, they'll be able to guide you if you want clarity on that. And they can also help you with those tax returns, both for the limited company and the self-assessment. It shouldn't be a big piece of work. It shouldn't be a big cost. Don't be intimidated by it. It's not that bad, especially if you get some help. But to give you comfort, it's absolutely fine to own properties in two different types of structures. A lot of people do, and it's perfectly normal.
Well, there you go. 2 more questions answered, and we'll be back here to do it all again next week. But before then, we'll see you on Thursday for the Property Podcast. Until then, have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.